Welcome back to Blaster Master Zero 02. We're on to our next kind of major area, Area C.
I like that we have to collect 2 kitchen sink faucets in this level, apparently, going by those silhouettes. Okay, so this is a spaceship instead of a planet. That's novel.
Yeah, it's always good when you're in space to have a wide variety of locations because you're in space and you can make up whatever the heck you want. Although...
Nah, generic ice planet, generic desert planet, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, single biome planets, I feel like, aren't probably real. Well, okay, inhabitable single biome planets aren't probably real. Like, I don't think that Mars, you could count dusty area number 1 and dusty area number 2 as different biomes.
Just to clarify something, single biome planets that are inhabitable in science fiction, even something as loose as Star Wars, generally takes some work to become habitable. Like, Tatooine is the poster child of this, but basically the only way they can inhabit that is to have moisture farmers sucking water out of the air. So, that is a thing to consider.
Do they ever explain why that people bother to live on Tatooine?
It's because it's an outer rim planet, which means there's not a lot of law or galactic enforcement, so they can just kind of do whatever illegal shit they want.
That's why it's
very
kind
little
of like
repercussions.
that's why it's kind of like characterized as a planet of hick farmers and scumbags. So yeah.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the race that rules that planet isn't even native to that planet. Those are the Hutts, and they're slugs, which obviously don't come from a desert world, but they rule like the entire outer rim, basically. So, I mean, the movies don't go into that, but that's how it is.
Well, it wouldn't be Star Wars if every single tiny thing in it didn't have 60 extra pieces of background info you could find in 3 shows, 2 video games, and 6 books.
Yeah.
So...
More or less. I mean, even when we just had the movies, you could get those, like I think these only started to come out in the 90s, but when they started releasing those visual dictionaries, you would get all kinds of background information for all of this stuff that you'd see in the background. And it's like,
yeah, it's
wow.
Basically like a D&D monster manual, but for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean, the more, like, the visual dictionaries for the modern movies can get a bit, like, overly try-hard about it because they went into those movies knowing that was the old tradition. But if you get the visual dictionary from the 90s that only that was made for the original trilogy, and it's really interesting shit.
I always wonder how much of that stuff, when Star Wars writers are writing it, do they come up with this stuff on the fly, or do they look at an old movie and be like, oh yes, those are the slugs from episode 2 that almost killed Padme. We need to put those in our story so that they have lore.
Well, it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, I suppose. Okay.
Makes sense, yeah.
To give you an idea of where a lot of the expanded universe stuff came from, one of the premier examples of the expanded universe being actually good. This is an interesting boss fight, by the way. Is it a boss fight?
It's kind of just the
yeah.
level gimmick in that the boss is always chasing you, and it is a cool level gimmick.
Okay,
I agree.
Well, one of the poster children for expanded universe stuff actually being good is the Thrawn trilogy, right? And the Thrawn trilogy was technically the first time the planet Coruscant actually featured in a story. They knew that Coruscant existed because there was a planet, because the planet name existed in George Lucas's stuff, but they had basically nothing to go on. So they wrote a bit about Coruscant. It's actually kind of comical how little it resembles the Coruscant we eventually got in the prequels. So
it's... Yeah, because I remember that the Thrawn trilogy is actually one of the extended universe things that they're bringing into, like, the modern Star Wars because people like it.
Kind
of.
Like,
they mention it in Clone Wars?
Rebels.
Is it?
It's
Rebels,
not. It's not
okay.
the Thrawn trilogy that they're bringing back because the Thrawn trilogy itself basically makes no sense now. But they
Okay.
brought the character of Thrawn back into the universe, so it's essentially the same character in an alternate universe rendition of himself.
Okay. Hopefully it's good because
Yeah, he's like one of the episodes with Thrawn in them are like some of the only episodes of Rebels that I could genuinely recommend that anybody watch.
I thought people liked Rebels. I know people like Clone Wars.
Rebels is okay, but it's not as consistently good as Clone Wars, is what I would say. It leans a little bit too hard into its trying to appeal to children tone, and as a result, sometimes the tone, the visual audio tone of the story presentation is a bit overly whimsical.
Well, Rebels is supposed to be like between 3 and 4, right? Like post Anakin going.
Yeah,
crap,
yeah,
right?
it leads into the original trilogy. Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit easier to make if they wanted to make a lighthearted kind of show, it's a little bit easier to do that pre original trilogy.
Well, yeah, they already
They already
they
burnt
already
that
did
bridge.
Clone Wars, so they didn't really have much time. Rebels was conceptualized with the unresolved loose ends of Clone Wars in mind before they actually had a chance to resolve those loose ends with the 7th season. So,
Do they just like have episode 3 happen off screen for that, or because I have people have been telling me to watch Clone Wars
What happens
for forever.
in season 7 is fairly interesting. Basically, after the last arc that they do with Anakin before episode 3, it's set before episode 3, and then there's a filler arc with Ahsoka, which is kind of mediocre, to be honest. But the last 4 episodes of season 7 tell the story of what Ahsoka and Darth Maul were doing during the events of episode 3. So you get lines of dialogue and like a video call, a space Skype call with Obi-Wan that basically exists to tell you where in the movie the timeline currently is. But it's all stuff that's happening while Anakin is going crazy and becoming Darth Vader. Order 66 happens in the middle of this story arc, so you get the story of what happened with Ahsoka and Maul when the clone troopers went murder crazy. And it's really interesting. It's actually, like, in its way, better than Episode 3 at everything Episode 3 actually tries to do.
Okay, I should just bite the bullet and watch it at some point, because that's what I did with Mandalorian, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would.
Why are we fighting William Birkin?
Yeah.
A slime draws near, Command.
Oh no, this isn't William Birkin. This is the slime monster from Toonami's Intruder, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's...
What an obscure reference to make this.
I'm old.
Is that the one that becomes the sexy robot girl
What?
in the ship?
No,
What?
that's the one that kills Tom.
Yeah, that's...
sexy
yeah.
robot. Toonami had a sexy robot girl. Where?
Yeah, like when
He's
Tom
talking
died.
about Sarah.
And
He's talking about who?
He's talking about Sarah.
on
Who?
Toonami, Tom died. The
I know-
robot
yeah,
guy
Tom
who
died,
introduced...
but what's this?
The girl who's like talks to Tom.
Oh, the
during,
computer
like, all
voice. Fucking.
She had a model. She had a model at
Cortana.
one point.
Okay, yeah, whatever her name is.
Yeah,
Sarah.
she
I-
was the one who killed him, and then they become friends.
I
for some
didn't
reason.
actually know that the robot voice became a robot at any point.
I don't look. It's been a long time, all right, since I've looked up the Toonami extended
The
universe.
Intruder was just a blob of red slime that they made to flex their 90s CGI graphical power, and it ate Tom's robot body, and he got a second new cooler robot body with blackjack and hookers apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tom losing his robot body and getting a new robot body happens like 6 times. So
Yeah, but this was the first time it happened.
So it was actually kind of interesting then. And then, unfortunately, during like the last season before it got rebooted again, was that stupid one with the face. And
That one
crap.
was
It's like,
terrible. Who thought that was a good idea?
it was the time when they were trying to appeal much more to kids compared to the teen audience Toonami normally appealed to.
Yeah, you can really tell.
Is Toonami and Tom still a thing? Like
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
It's Saturday overnights.
Saturday overnights. Okay.
So
Yeah, so it's basically just admitted that it's a teen thing. And
it's basically like Adult Swim light, Diet Adult Swim at this point.
Well, it's anime Adult Swim, yes.
Adult
Yeah.
Swim
And
is always anime. It's like
King of the
90%
Hill.
of
Oh yeah,
the
King of the Hill is anime.
90%
so-
of the 90% of the cartoons that are considered too mature for kids happen to be anime. So Adult Swim was always saturated with anime.
Early on for Adult Swim anyway. It got way too Family Guy, etc. focused later on.
Yeah, but it's still like people still watch it for the anime that they happen to broadcast during those hours. So
Well, that's only on Saturdays now.
I mean,
What?
it does kind of make more sense for Toonami to be the anime block because Toonami, it's a play on tsunami. You get it? But
I never got that before. Oh my god, they're geniuses.
you are kidding, right?
Well, I mean, Toonami's pretty cool. So maybe they are geniuses, but not for the name. But yeah. But yeah, no, I think it makes sense to have the anime block and the King of the Hill Family Guy adult quote unquote cartoon block be separate because the audience is very different between the typical
Yes.
person who watches Family Guy and the typical person who watches
I mean,
Attack on
Star.
Titan.
I mean, I know Adult Swim always had things that weren't anime in it, but it also always had more anime than everything else. So
When it started, yes, because it was easier to license anime, but then they started to get the money to make their own shows like Harvey Birdman and stuff. So
Well, I mean, it's probably pretty easy to license most of the D-list Hanna-Barbera stuff.
well, that's kind of why they did Space Ghost and all that.
Yeah.
do you remember when Toonami was hosted by Moltar? That was a trip.
Yeah, at the very beginning.
That was dumb.
Well, yeah. And the voice actor for Tom was Sonny Strait, voice of Krillin.
I still don't get what they were thinking when they chose Moltar for that role. We're gonna have an anime block. Let's have Moltar host.
From Space Ghost, you know what Space Ghost is?
Moltar would have made sense for a host for Adult Swim, but like, it's just like, nah, man.
That Cartoon Network is weird, man.
I mean, I suppose it could have been worse. Could you imagine Zorak hosting Toonami?
Zorax would have made more sense than Moltar.
What about Brack?
Now you're just making up names.
No,
he's
Brack's a
not.
character.
I mean, you know what? Brack would have made more sense than Moltar. Moltar is just like the least anime thing ever. But
Well, you know, I can think of several things that are not anime. Live action,
I mean,
for example,
I also have
is
like
not
zero
anime.
context as to what Brack was like in the actual Space Ghost show, as opposed to Space Ghost
as
Coast
someone
to
who's
Coast.
someone who's actually seen some old Space Ghost cartoons, he's just kind of a generic villain.
Yeah. Okay. So
They were all just generic villains.
So yeah. Okay. So,
Well,
like,
I mean, isn't that the whole point of shows like that or Venture Brothers?
well, yeah.
is
Space
that-
Space Ghost had nothing going for him until Space Ghost Coast to Coast happened, which
Yeah.
was like surprisingly genius and hilarious. But
Well, it's just one of those things that you're only allowed to do if you use a D-list character like that, versus
Yeah.
like they never would do like a talk show with Shaggy and Scooby-Doo where they make lewd jokes and whatever, you know.
nah, I think I'd watch that.
I mean, I would too.
I mean, we would, but you couldn't get the corporate wigs to agree to that, though.
Nah, you know what? They've done enough Scooby-Doo spin-offs now that they could totally make that work. Especially,
So Velma, man, like I just gotta ask, does like the carpet match like the Drake's dude?
No.
Drakes.
If they were gonna do that, they'd have to use Sassy Velma from. Oh, which Scooby-Doo series is that?
That's Mystery Incorporated.
Mystery Incorporated. They have to use
Mystery
that
Incorporated's great, where Velma's like, guys, I think that this is the bad guy. No, Velma, it's never the first person we investigate.
Velma is done with the universe in that show, and it's great.
That show
Is that the one with is that the one with the Ultra Instinct Shaggy?
Yeah, no, it's not. That's a movie, I think. But it is, however, a genius show, and the reason for it is it makes Fred a likable and interesting character.
Does it also make
Which I
Daphne
thought
a
was
likable and interesting character, though?
It does! And I didn't think that was possible, but they did it.
I need to sit down and watch that entire series someday, because...
It's good. It's only like 2 seasons long, too, so
Yeah.
it's a good short watch. And it's like surprisingly thoughtful and well plotted, while also still feeling like a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
And also,
so it doesn't...
I would also say that 2 seasons is probably the right length for something like that, because that kind of halfway satirical take on Scooby-Doo it could run a serious risk of wearing out its welcome, specifically with Scooby-Doo fans, if it lasted too long.
Yeah. Yeah, like
you know,
Scooby-Doo is the kind of series that can go on for forever because it's just, oh, we go to a town. What's the mystery? But you're right in that if you're trying to deconstruct it even just a little bit,
Yeah.
that it could wear thin if you go on for too long.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so long that you can spend essentially halfway making fun of the things that make a series tick before it stops being entertaining and starts being disrespectful to the source.
Yeah.
And I think two seasons was probably a good cutoff point for that.
I think it's 2 seasons. It might be 3. It's been a long
2 or
time.
3, it doesn't matter. As
Yeah.
long as it's not
But it
lasting,
wasn't terribly long. It didn't go on for
as long as it's not trying to be one of those forever shows,
Yeah, some shows work as forever shows, and ironically, Scooby-Doo is one of those that could, Although the original, this is one of the interesting pieces of trivia about it, is that the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You is only is it only 24 episodes or something like that?
It's not a very long show.
Well, it was
yeah.
a different time.
Well, it was back in the era when Hanna-Barbera was throwing everything at the wall and just seeing what sticks, so nothing lasted very long.
But
so.
also, back at the time, we didn't lean so heavily into long-running franchises for everything. You could have a movie, and it would just be a standalone movie, man. And maybe if it was successful enough, it would get a sequel. But they wouldn't be, banking on that until after they knew it would get a sequel. So...
I mean, this is also partially why 90% of the Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters are all basically the same character.
Yeah, but we live in a post-Harry Potter Lord of the Rings universe where everything has to be a 9-movie epic. So it's a little it gets a little old, I'm going to admit. Maybe this is my old man shaking fist at clouds showing, though. I don't know. Oh, it's time to actually fight this goddamn thing. Defend them all? What does that mean?
It's
a name.
Yeah, it's a defense robot. So
It's called Defend Them All? I thought that was an
Apparently.
objective, and it was a non-standard boss.
yeah, it's defend the point for 30 turns, and then the Fire Emblem strategy music starts playing, and you have to choose which tank you want to play. Oh, wait,
You will
no.
have 10 turns until Ryoma decides to get he's fed up with the shit and starts.
Oh
doing
my
things.
god, that is still the funniest thing of dialogue ever. Just Ryoma will wait patiently for his revenge for 15 turns.
10 turns.
I just also like the idea that he's just standing there, and Corrin's like,
Are you
we
gonna do something?
Are we gonna fight or what?" Oh man. Also, I guess Fire Emblem with tanks is just Advance Wars too. So
Yeah, basically.
yeah, we should.
I just remembered
I guess
what
it's-
that was.
Advance Wars doing well on the GBA, and the West is what got Intelligent Systems and Nintendo to actually localize Fire Emblem 7.
But the thing is, it doesn't surprise me that I forgot what Advance Wars was, because Intelligent Systems has also forgotten what Advance Wars was. So
They've forgotten what a lot of things are, actually, now that I think about it.
good point.
Rip.
Let's remember other things in the next part of Blaster Master Zero 2.